You're watching ASOTUCon 2024, presented in collaboration with Reynolds and Gubagoo.
Thanks to our panel partner, fullthrottle.ai, for making this panel happen.
Everyone stand up, stand up, stand up. All right, I know you've been in here for a hot minute. All I need you to do is, this is your left leg. It's on that side for you. That's on this side for me. Just give it a little shake. Give your left leg a little shake. Give the little right leg a shake. Give the left arm a little shake. Give the right arm a little shake. All right, as you're sitting down, jump in your app. There is a poll in there that I'd love for you guys to grab. Also, this is, I brought all the nerds with me for this panel. Say hi, nerds.
Hi.
Hello.
We're going to talk about acronyms, mainly the acronym of CDP. So if you have any questions for the nerds, will you guys accept that title? Is that okay? Okay.
Love nerds.
If you have any questions for the nerds, make sure and hit that in the Q&A, and we'll get to them if we can here at the end of the panel. First of all, thank you guys so much for joining us on the main stage. We've got a few awesome people up here. We're going to kick it right off. Has anybody heard the acronym CDP ever recently? Is anyone tired of hearing the acronym CDP? Okay, sounds good. Amal, I want to start with you and just level set right now because we've got the title of this is the confused data predicament when it comes to especially the CDP. Talk a little bit about what exactly is so confusing about the word CDP, the data predicament, what's going on in this race toward the ultimate goal, right?
Yeah, great loaded question to start off
You're
with.
welcome.
Yeah. But no, I think for some time, everyone's been trying to search what a CDP means to them, right? And as happens in our industry, we take labels and you see CDPs popping up everywhere. It becomes something that everyone wants to get in on. And so then it becomes very difficult for dealers and dealer groups to navigate and say, well, do I need this? Do I need this just because everyone needs this? Or what am I truly trying to achieve out of it? And I think typically what my personal experience has been working with large dealer groups and even single point dealers is that we typically see two different paths that come into play. One is you have large dealer groups that do this, multi-year transformational process where they hire someone that's professional services, they come in and say, we're gonna do a whole year, integrate all the data, bring everything together, and then it's a very expensive endeavor. And after a year, maybe 2 years, depending on how long it takes, it's like, cool, we have this. Now it's, hey, how does everyone want to use the data that we've started with, right? So you end up in that predicament and everyone's not sure what to now do with this very expensive project that you've pursued. The other thing that I've seen with more single dealers, dealer points where they try to pick up something that's maybe off the shelf, right? Because they're not going to go spend millions on this year-long transformation strategy. They're going to say, okay, well, there's a couple vendors out there. I can put it in my single store or one of my 2 stores, and I can see what I get out of it. And there too, it brings all their data, quote unquote, together. And then they're like, okay, well, where does this fit in my tech stack? Do I have my BDC that's logging in? Are they using it as a CRM? Because my CRM doesn't have who's calling and texting and only has some information. Am I using this to send a better email? Because my CRM sends email. So am I just plugging in what my CRM isn't doing? Right? So I think CDP is now this big nebulous term that has come out to solve different things depending on who the vendor kind of is, right? And so I think the biggest thing that I share with dealers, again, of all sizes, is to think about the impact and the outcome that you want at the end of this future state and work backwards to say, yeah, I could put more ads into Facebook and Google and do more programmatic advertising, or I could send a better email. There's a lot of sending better email, vendors that are out there. But where do I spend most of my money today, and how can that monthly marketing budget be better data informed, be better based on first party data, be better attributed using technology? And I think if you start there and work backwards, you will end up in a much better place. One of the stats that we were actually just discussing is that 80% of brands, auto and non-auto, just a general industry statement, will give up the search for a single view of the customer. That's a Gartner stat. And the reason that they're going to do that is because they don't start with the end. They start with, all right, let's get all our data together, and then they're cool, what's next after that, right? And because that incremental approach may mean at one point your CFO is going to come to you, your controller is going to come to you and say, what are we doing, guys? Like, we spent millions of dollars.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. So maybe long answer to a big question, but that's kind of the first piece of advice I always give dealers.
Yeah, Melissa, you've kind of, we've been chatting for the last, year and a half, 2 years about just the journey that AutoNation has been on, and as much as you can talk through it, you all did start the exercise with a lot of the questions of what are we going to do with this when we get to the end. What were some of those questions that you endeavored to answer as you began a process of figuring out how to communicate better to your customers?
Well, first I'll say, like, 5 years ago, we talked about like CDPs.
Wow.
And we have had a database in place that has clean data for email, for direct mail. Like, we have that exists. We just didn't have the piece that goes on top of it to actually execute. So for us, we had to sit in a room and just talk through use cases, build that out. Because we're going to build this platform on top of what we already have. We have to know in our minds where we want to go with it, how we want to manage through it, the omni-channel approach that can be a part of the whole journey within a CDP that you can execute on. So, like, really simple things, like just, making sure that we're enriching our data. Like, we need to talk about how we're going to be able to do that, how the APIs that we need to be able to create so that we can work with multiple vendors. Like, these are all things that we talked about in the beginning, but there were some, I can't really speak to all the use cases out loud, but there were we had a huge amount of them from every department that would be touched by this CDP. And I think for us, that was the key. And that's the way to get everybody on board too, right? Because to your point, you have to have everyone on board.
I love that you said there were multiple departments that had input into what's the end result. It's not just like, oh, marketing wanted to run better programmatic, right? It was like, no, communication is a part of every single one of our departments, right?
But within each department, everybody has their own selfish reason why they want it. I mean, my selfish reason was measurement, and attribution. MTA, getting to multi-touch attribution, like true, and that's what we're accomplishing. Like, we just launched that. I was telling you just literally a few days ago. I haven't even tinkered with it yet. So those things are possible. But for me, I was selfish. But we all knew we had to line up together, and we had to have a use case for every department or several of them to really make it work.
Yeah. Tina, some people may wonder, like, why is Dealer on a stage about, CDPs, right? Isn't that the thing that kind of pulls all my data together? But when you think about, like, okay, am I after a unique identifier of every single customer? Do I understand how to get that into the end state? Like, there's end states that are the outbound piece of this, but you kind of think about it from a different end state. Talk a little bit about what data aggregation from a consumer perspective means to your type of end state.
Sure. So from a website vendor perspective, your website's your digital storefront. So we really want to take in all the first-party data that we can. I think, Full Throttle has a great platform for that. And just be able to personalize that consumer experience on the website. It's great to get a personalized email. We can create really great emails that say, you're up on your lease, but then what happens when you click that link and go to your website? Everyone sees the exact same vehicle, the exact same offers. The messaging is exactly the same, and we want to turn this on everyone's head and utilize this first-party data, whether it is a CDP or data mining, whatever, and personalize that experience so that the shopper feels engaged and more empowered to purchase a vehicle ultimately or service their vehicle at your location.
Yeah, I think just to build on that, I predict that when we sit here next year, I think that we're going to have, I don't know what percentage, but half the dealers are going to have focused only on, hey, I'm going to do more Facebook uploads of my first-party data. I'm going to do more Google uploads of my first-party data. And I'm going to send better emails because someone visited a Ford store and then a Chrysler store, and then there was a price drop, and so there was like a cooler content email that was sent. I think you're going to have half the dealers that did that, and they're going to be like, I did all that, but I got maybe some incremental gains, but like my market share 1 year later is kind of the same thing. So they're going to be questioning, was that really worth it? I think then the other, quote unquote half, or what hopefully a higher percentage of dealers are going to be saying, wow, I really leaned in and thought about my marketing budget of, let's just say it's 40 grand a month, right? Just to take a sample number. I thought about, how do I lean into the personalized website of the future, right? Where every customer has a unique experience based on this data. So I'm not just uploading stuff to Facebook and Google, but I'm thinking about how my experience for customers is better with first-party data. I'm thinking about my investments in audio, podcasting, video, CTV, display, and linear TV, right? How is all of that being impacted by my first-party data? And I think today, again, everyone's kind of maybe on that level one of like, cool, I'm gonna upload to Facebook, Google, and send a better email. But I think the dealers that think more holistically, more broadly about where do you spend money today every month, and how can that be better used on your website and in these other places where you already spend, they're gonna actually see a difference in market share. And they're the ones that a year later, or maybe sooner, are gonna realize that there's a truer return, not just more software and more technology that makes them question, hey, have I really gotten incrementality out of this?
Yeah, Melissa, you want to say?
Yeah, I think, as you start to think through like all the ways that you could approach it, for me, it's like, how can I get efficient at my marketing? How can I get really efficient? I know a lot of people in this room probably spend a boatload on Google. I hate spending money on Google. I hate spending money on Facebook. I would like to find, it's like my hope is that at some point we'll get to a place with this CDP environment that I will be able to say, have a decision for me. I'm gonna send this message and it's gonna be by direct mail because that's what that user wants. Or it's gonna be a display ad because they're ingesting content online and that's where they're gonna see it. So I think that's what is exciting for me about like what's to come, and that's where people should be thinking about those outcomes and how to get there.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like early, everyone was like, send a better email, right? Everybody's always been in pursuit of send a better email. And I think we will consistently be in pursuit of send a better email for the rest of our lives, especially because inboxes are getting more and more and more flooded, right? So how do we get that email open? But there's so many other channels. And there was kind of a ping pong on like, there's multi-channel delivery and multi-channel attribution, right? And both of those things are things that we've been after as like, kind of like the North Star for a long time. Ever since we've been convinced that, with digital you'll be able to track everything, right? And that's been kind of like a thing that we've been grasping at, but never felt we've been able to reach. And this potentially gets us closer to that. When you think about like those channel distribution and channel attribution, the tie down is the showrooms, right? And there's a digital and there's an in-person showroom. I'm gonna give kind of a little example that I want you to talk about, Tina, is, the showroom for so much of e-com is Instagram. It is Facebook. That is actually their showroom. That's where they live. That's where they display their product primarily for the user, TikTok, whatever it may be. And we have, a combined showroom, a brick and mortar and an in-store. And the interesting thing, I don't know if anybody has been on Instagram this morning and got almost sold something they didn't know they needed before this morning, right? That happens all the time because they know who we are and they serve us the right thing at the right time. How can we better manage the multiple showrooms and knowing who people are intelligently? Because when we say personalization, everybody thinks like the creepy Instagram thing that you just heard someone say a conversation and then all of a sudden it showed up. But what does personalization mean, and what does a user really want when we've done this thing, right? Like, I'm gonna ask it this way, actually. Paul asked the question, what are customers asking right now? What are customers asking for when we're asking for personalization? What's the customer question in that?
Sure, I think they want to see something that relates to them, right? If I'm looking for a truck or something, like I want to come to the website and I want to have that experience be tailored to me. So whether that's, a line of vehicles that I see on your homepage that's personalized for me, I go into, your SRP, and I'm starting to see advertising to nudge me into purchasing or looking at more trucks, we can effectively and intelligently use the data that we're getting from first-party solutions to show that across the website for every single user. It can seem a little creepy, right? Just like you gave the Instagram example, but I think that's the future, right? People expect that. You're seeing that on your Instagram, your social feeds. You're seeing that in Netflix as you go in. I've been watching Sex and the City, so now I'm getting, advertisements and recommended shows related to that. I'm excited that it's on Netflix, but people expect that in their life, and the auto industry needs to catch up to that, and we need to meet the consumer where they are today.
Yeah, I feel like it's such an art and a science, right? Because a lot of it is not being creepy, but also escorting through the experience. But you have to escort, but also kind of not be forcing them, right? And so I think there's this art and science, like specifically on like a personalized website, where it feels easy, and easy is like, yeah, I do want that. That's right. So I click on that, right? But it doesn't feel like it's shoved in your face, right? And so there's maybe a creative way to do it. There's a way, obviously, I think you have to use data to be able to deliver kind of that seamless set of waypoints, right? So you feel like it's not hard to shop, it's easy. The more you make things easy, the better it is. And I think, I was talking with a group of investors the other week, and there's always this conversation of, is your phone listening to you, right? Everyone has had that conversation of like, oh, I feel like I'm just talking about something with my wife, and suddenly I see some ad, maybe on Instagram or whatever, right? It's like, is it really listening? And I don't know, I have no idea truly if anyone's listening or not, but what I like to believe, because I'm the nerd, as you so fully put, I can see
I take that too,
yeah.
so don't worry.
Oh, no, but I own it totally. But I can see how I'm in the data, right? And I can see how that data can be composed so that the net effect is that someone does feel like you're listening to them, but you're not listening to them. You're just actually using first-party data to deliver this escorted kind of shopping experience where it feels much easier. And I do think that truly leads to things like higher conversion rates. And if I'm using 3 different sites and one of them feels like I'm being guided through the waypost, I'm likely to use that versus the other site, which is very complicated, and I don't even know what I want at that point.
Well, also, okay, my wife and I were watching Shogun right now. If you haven't watched it, it's really good. Right? But like, if I logged into Disney Plus and didn't see my Hulu Shogun next, I would be actually infuriated. I would be like, this is so bad, right? I want the thing that is right for me next. Similarly, when you think about even a smaller store, someone understanding how to get to the service experience, how to get to the car that they're looking for in the filters, it's almost a tall ask that we're asking of customers to not give them a guided tour through our shopping experience.
It's a broken experience.
Yeah.
So that was going to be my question, because I think a lot of people probably are thinking, we talk personalization, but we all have these websites that are not great, and that's being nice. So how do we get there? Because we've got all these buttons and there's all these things flashing across the websites, and consumers there's too much going on for them to make a decision. So how do you personalize that? I don't know how you get there with that when you're restricted. So, I don't know, is that something you're working on?
It is. And I think from our perspective, Dealeron's perspective, we want to work with every player, but we want to make sure that you're not impeding on that experience, right? Like you said, you've got, chat bubbles and other, third-party integrations popping up, and sometimes blocking those call to actions to actually convert. So
2 forms popping at the same time.
Exactly. So
what
we've
is
been
that?
really trying to work with a bunch of partners and providers to make the website better. It's a long road ahead, but we're trying to take that first step into kind of cleaning it up and creating spaces for that third party, we call them third parties, right? But those players that our dealerships want to work with that might not be native to our website.
I think maybe just thinking outside the box and really being innovative about how you can change that experience could help, but then we're working obviously with the right partner, making sure that you can do that, because I think about the Amazon experience. It's just you pick your product and you just buy it. You put it in the cart and you buy it. It's that simple, and we just overcomplicate it.
I think an interesting thing that, as I was listening to everyone talk, is that the future of the internet is a logged in internet, right? So everyone's going to be logged into things. Today, we mostly log into things like Amazon or Netflix. And so, of course, we log in, the experience is fully personalized. Automotive retail is probably not at a place where consumers are going to be like, yeah, I'm going to log into the dealer website, right? There's, for a whole myriad of reasons that we don't have enough time to talk about, like that's not going to happen there. So I do think like in pursuit of that experience, which consumers are have learned to expect from their digital experiences, I think that's where you need to bring it back to CDP and first party data. How do you then use data to kind of provide a little bit of personalized experience so that when the time is right for the industry, which I don't know if that's next year or the year after that, as the whole internet evolves to a logged in internet, there's already steps been taking place so that those waypoints are created, and now someone's gonna feel like, you know what? I've used this website, this Ford website, could be a dealer-owned website, and it's so easy, and now I feel more comfortable logging into this dealer website. And then, of course, once you're logged in, I mean, then the possibilities are endless of how you tailor the experience.
You've built that trust in that customer.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like building the trust now for the future implementation of a logged in user. One of the things that I wanted to ask is, if there's 80% of people that in their pursuit will give up by 2026, how do we, as an industry, or if someone's in the room, like I'm looking at this survey, poll results, 13% say that, yep, they've installed this, 27% say, I'm still working on it, some 23% want to but not sure where to start, and 37% the what are you talking about, which is, thank you for being so honest. That's great. But when you think about what are the questions that a dealer or dealer group should be asking themselves on whether or not the timing is right for them to start a move toward this unified customer ID, this pursuit of ad delivery and attribution and customer interaction, like what are there things that you need to have in place, people you need to have in place, mindsets that you need to have in place, questions you should be asking on whether or not this is the good next step,
Yeah, I think starting with AutoNation's big, and so you have a lot of departments, and so there's a more quote unquote corporate experience of where you're doing some of that consensus building. If you're not as big as AutoNation, you may not have multiple departments, but you have, I think, different stakeholders still in the process, right? So I do think for your BDC team or for your team that's primarily handling customer conversations, there should be a key conversation about what's the role of my CRM, what's the role of a CDP, right? What tools should my team be using? How can they have a verbal conversation with a potential customer or a shopper that has all of the information in one place, right? I think that is, and then work backwards from like, well, how do I solve that? Second, we're Full Throttle is a marketing cloud, so I'll also give an experience from a marketing standpoint too, right? That I believe, I'll oversimplify, which is that I think all your marketing spend should be as targetable and as attributable as direct mail, right? Direct mail is the ultimate. I pick a list. It's first-party data, by the way. It's going back to the 90s, right? You pick a list.
We've always had first-party data. We just started talking about it.
Exactly, right? So how do you pick it? Yes, there's enriched data, and there's better ways to use it, obviously. But in terms of, again, go back to your monthly budget for your stores. What are you spending on? What is not based on first-party data, and what is not attributable all the way down to sales and service lift, right? Gross total RO value, true business incrementality, right? So I would again, it's starting with those things and saying, okay, well, I looked at my budget, and X% of my budget, I have no idea. I don't know really what the business outcomes are, but I feel like it's working, right? And so if you start there, I think there's great. I do think those are two kind of different uses of first-party data. There's more, but if I had to start with two, those are two. And ideally, there's a way which you can intersect and solve both of those problems, but don't feel like you have to solve both of those problems with one tool, because they're massively different use cases.
I say this a lot. I'm like, if you want a 200-car store a month, right, and you have 10,000 people in your DMS, you only have to retain 75% of those customers every 3 years.
Yeah.
That's nuts. Like, people are always asking, like, but don't I need it? And the reason I say that is you were like, if all of your marketing isn't attributable back to first-party data, what are you doing, right? People are always, well, I have to go acquire more customers. Well, if you have 10,000 people in your DMS that are de-anonymized and that have, clean data in them, and that's 10,000 clean, right? You might have 40,000. All you got to do is get 10,000 clean, retain 75% of those every 3 years, and you have a 200 car a month store, and you haven't acquired a net new customer yet. So if you get what we're talking about right, the marketing spend becomes super cheap, right?
100%. And
is my math right?
Efficient.
Yeah.
Okay.
Extremely efficient.
Yeah, and the other thing I would add is that a lot of times the talk about first-party data is often data from the past, right? So it's your previous customers, your lease upgrades, all the people that have purchased from you, right, in the last 7 years. But I believe dealers need to be thinking about what technology brings me first-party data from the future, right? Which is a dramatic way of maybe saying it, but it's true, right? Because a lot of times what we talk about with dealers is that you don't want to be looking in the rearview mirror, right? You want to be looking forward. And so if you're able to invest in technology that takes something like website audiences, that brings it down to a household level, that lets you shed cookies, right? We didn't even talk about cookies going away, it gets punted, who knows, right? But the chain reaction has started, everything is changing. How do you bring forward-facing data, not just the lease upgrades from the last couple of years, right? Forward-facing data, and now use that to power all of your marketing too. I think that will make a huge difference.
Yeah. Melissa, what are you excited about? Because you're still like in this implementation timeline, you're still getting data back. What are you excited about over the next year with like getting out of the confusion of data?
Yeah, like understanding how it's really going to work for us, where the efficiencies are. But what I get excited about is the attribution component the most. Like, that's really where my heart lives. But I want to be able to tell a narrative to my executive team of why we're there and why we're buying the media the way we're buying it. And I think that that's powerful when you have that data behind you. So I'm excited about that.
I feel like every marketer can, like, that hits if there's a marketer in the room, that hit them in the gut, because they're like, I'm always telling my manager, like, it works.
When you live in we all live in a world of lead sale, right? Like, that's what we focus on. But there's value in other channels that are contributing to that lead being driven to that store, and they need to be given credit where credit's due. So when you see like things getting deployed and you don't have the numbers to prove that it has a value or has incrementality, then you're just going to get blank faces in the room. Like, you should just, turn that off, shut that marketing down.
Pull the plug, it's too expensive.
Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, I want to add something which could be provocative. Maybe not everyone will agree with it, but I genuinely believe this is true. So a lot of times people are asking about advanced multi-touch attribution, and they're at a place where they're thinking about, well, how do I think about what weight I prescribe to what channel, right? And it's like, oh, well, 20, if it's paid search, I'm gonna do 20%. If it's a lead, this percent. And so like, you're working on this like super advanced scientific, like, marketing mix and weighted attribution model. And I think that for most dealers, even progressive ones, it's too much, right? If your AutoNation might be a little bit different, but generally it is too much at this point. I believe start with step one and say, I don't know what percentage, but I can tell you, here's everything that had an influence, and here's everything that didn't have an influence, right? So like basic, like,
on-off.
Yeah, 1800s, yay or nay, right? Yep. Like, did it or did it not? Because if you have a solid and truly data-driven, high level of confidence to say, I know these things are having an effect, and I know these things are not having an effect, that alone, I still think many people don't have that. If you nail that, which, again, I think
our industry will save billions of dollars.
Billions of dollars. And then go ascribe weights and things, right, to more advanced. I think that's still very valuable, but I think you can't, for this piece, I think you have to make sure you simplify, solve that, right, and then go into more advanced things when it makes a difference.
Awesome.